They may be only 3 musicians, but when they come together, their strings and vocals create magic. Time for 3 is the popular Grammy and Emmy award-winning ensemble whose sound is recognized around the world. And how lucky are we that next week we can actually see them take over East Lansing at Wharton Center. Today, we're getting a chance to speak to one of the members of the group. Joining us now is Nick Kendal from Time for 3. How are you?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Well, Nick, as 1/3 of Time for 3, you guys refer to yourself as a classically trained garage band. In your own words, tell us what that means.
It's sort of an image that is a reflection of who we are, I think. If we think of what classical music is, I think sometimes classical music, because it's so steeped in tradition and there's such a foundation to it, sometimes it feels like our parents' music or something that our grandparents would go to, which is true. But definitely the 3 of us grew up loving that music. And of course, growing as humans, but also as artists through the language of classical music. But then the juxtaposition of it is our music is very spontaneous, and it's the music that we write, or we work with producers who write with us or for us, composers. And of course the vocal elements. So it's very modern in that sense. So it's like classical, but then very like in the moment, new, fresh, a lot of energy. And our live shows tend to be a mixture of obviously taking some of the craft from classical music, but mostly it's maybe doing an arrangement that's super familiar right now, or taking a song that's like stood the test of time, or a lot of our originals. But so it's that image of classically trained garage band should give you a little sense of who we are.
Well, I love it. And I can imagine what the dynamic is like when you all get together on stage. But something else I know you all love to do is blend different genres of music together. So talk to us about some of the other different genres that we'll hear in your music.
Creatively, we're borrowing from so many things. I mean, sometimes we'll mix in a country song or elements or flavors of country harmony, but then we'll put it in with like a bluegrass flavor of classical music, or we'll do straight up rock and roll with hip hop. We actually love it when record labels can't put us in a genre. It's hard because, obviously we're in the business of, promoting through record sales and everything, but a lot of times labels have a hard time categorizing us because we don't really fit into one genre, which we love. Creatively, we love not being able to be described as a genre-specific group. But we are artists of the soul for sure, and we speak through our music.
Well, Nick, your work has not only been seen on stages, but it can actually be heard in film as well. Can you tell me about your experience performing on the soundtrack of Land?
It was an interesting process, one of the most challenging but rewarding after the fact. And we did it all remotely. Each one of us did our parts in the band remotely from our own makeshift studios that we built out for the movie. End result was great. I mean, it got premiered at Sundance Film Festival, which was a huge deal for the film and for us. And unfortunately, it did not do well, and because no one was going to movie theaters, and which we really wrote the music for, the live experience, the community experience that you get when you go watch a film with people, the surround sound. We really crafted that soundtrack to be immersive, and we had no control of that when people started watching movies over computers. So it was kind of a bummer in that way, but it's a piece of art and we're very proud of it. And if you're on the international flight on Delta or KLM, I think it is, or US Air, you can watch it. And so I think it's also on HBO. You can see it. Land, Land.
Well, I'll definitely be adding Land to my watch list, but we are so excited to see you all join us in mid-Michigan. However, there are an orchestra of students from Okemos High School who are even more excited because they're getting a chance to perform with you on stage. How does it feel to be able to collaborate with these students, many of them who have told us that they really look up to you and all of your work?
That's so meaningful to hear. We definitely designed that part of the show to include local community. So, when you're a touring artist, so often you're like coming into town, you show up, do sound check, you play a show, maybe afterwards go to a hotel for a few hours of sleep, and then you're off to the next city. And sometimes it feels fleeting, like you don't really get to know what. So we often ask ourselves, how can we make more of an impact in the places we travel? And one of the first songs that we wrote, called Joy, inspired by Beethoven, we thought, well, what if we wrote some really turnkey parts for local young students or musicians or singers or whatever to join us on? They can work with their parents and their teachers at home, and then they get about a half hour on stage with us before the show, and then their parents or their community comes, and it actually kind of steals the show. Quite honestly, it's amazing.
Well, Nick, we're looking forward to having you and all of Time for Three join us in mid-Michigan. And if you're interested in seeing them at Wharton Center, you can actually purchase your tickets for January 29th at whartoncenter.com. But stay tuned. After the break, we're going to hear about those Okemos students, and we're going to hear how they're preparing for this opportunity. So we'll be right back.